Okay, guys, I'm going to do a general feedback for everyone because the same types of feedback keep coming up in everyone's pieces. So, um, we're talking about Section A here specifically, the Gran Torino film. And I just want you to take some notes and jot down some of the general feedback that I give and think about how it applies to you specifically. So the first one is, and this is probably the most important one, so this is why I've put it at number one, and this is the thing that most people generally stuff up, and even in Year 12, this is the thing that lets people down. You must choose one of the two options for Gran Torino in the question, and whatever question it is that you choose, you must make sure that you address that question. All right. So you will definitely go into the exam knowing some things about Gran Torino, and you will have an idea in your head of some things that you would like to write about with Gran Torino. However, if those things in your head do not necessarily match up with the question, or you can't shape them to have something to do with the question that you're responding to, have a think about how much they're actually going to get you any marks. All right, because you can't just go in there with a preconceived idea or a pre-prepared response, and you think, well, no matter what the question is, I'm going to write this about Walt, or I'm going to write this about Tao. Because if it doesn't respond to the question, then you're not actually doing what you are meant to be doing, and that is responding to the question. So there's a couple of points here. Whatever the question is, you can't change it. All right, so you can't change it to suit yourself, such as, the question, for example, one of the practice ones was, Tao is a follower, not a leader, do you agree? I mean, you can't write about how Tao is a good son but lacks masculinity. I mean, that's not really what the question is asking you to do. All right, and so you can't necessarily change the question, and you can't ignore it completely either. Gran Torino is about redemption and becoming a man. I mean, if the question is about Tao being a follower and not a leader, then you've got to bring all your points. Your response has to deal with this idea of following and leading. And if you want to talk about redemption and becoming a man, then you've got to somehow make them about following and leading. Because otherwise, you've just completely ignored the question and you haven't done what you're required to do. So the first thing is, whatever the question is, you've got to make sure that all your points address the question being asked. Secondly, and this is again to do with the question, you're going to be picking up a theme here, and this is the thing that most people struggle with. You must read the question carefully. Okay, when we set essay questions, we do it very, very deliberately, and it usually takes us, probably an hour or so to come up with the exact wording of what we want a question to read like. So therefore, we have to think about what would we expect from students when they respond to the question. And questions, we don't just set easy essay questions. All essay questions should be accessible on some level. So some people will write fairly basic responses, but other people, and every essay question that we set, will have an opportunity for some complexity in there and for some depth in the thinking. So read the question carefully and then stop and ask yourself, what is it asking me to do here? And is there any part of this question that I don't necessarily agree with and that I might challenge a little bit? And is there any information that I've got in my head that might not necessarily be relevant to this question that I might just have to leave out? Okay, so let's have a look. When I say, what does the question ask you to do? Let's have a look at those 5 practice questions. The first one is, Walt remains racist throughout the entirety of the film. Discuss. Well, it's obviously talking about Walt's racism. However, there's a few things here that it's asking you to do. Walt remains racist throughout the entirety of the film. Well, this implies that he is racist to begin with. So is that something that you agree with or that you would challenge? And the second one is the entirety of the film. Well, this talks about change. Is he racist at the start, and is he racist as the film progresses? And so in your answer, you might look at a progression of racism here. How does it change, or does it change at all? Or is he even racist to begin with? These are things that you might need to have a look at. So this is what I mean when it says, what is it asking you to do? Tao is a follower, not a leader. Do you agree? Well, what's it asking you to do here? It's obviously focusing on Tao. Is he a follower? Well, again, I would talk about change. Okay, what is Tao like at the beginning of the film compared to the end? Why does he change? What are those catalysts that lead him to making such changes? And what is a leader anyway? And does he end up becoming a leader? Well, I'm not sure. These are all things for you to look at, and this is what the question is asking you to do. Walt sacrifices his life for Tao and Sue's family. Why does he do this? Well, first of all, I would say, well, why does he do it? Well, what are some of the things that he likes about Tao and Sue's family? That's obviously something that it's asking you. But here it also implies that he sacrifices his life for Tao and Sue's family. And one of the complexities here that I would look at is, does he do this for Tao and Sue's family alone? Or does he sacrifice his life because it's something for him as well? And we talk about redemption and the baggage that he's carried from the war years and throughout his life and his relationship with his sons. His wife has just died, So does he sacrifice his life purely and simply for Tao and Sue's family? So you're getting the point here that each question, there's a range of complexities and certain levels that you could go to in your analysis. Is Walt a good man? Well, this is a really complex type question here, because on the surface, it's a yes/no question, isn't it? Is he a good man? What is a good man? There's elements of good and elements of bad, and what could you talk about here? Okay, so again, you get this sense that these questions and the same will be in the exam. Whatever you respond to, have a think about what it is asking you to do. And this leads to the complexities in the question. All right, if a question on the surface seems easy, then that's fine, okay, I take your point. And you might begin your response with the easiest and obvious type, things that you're going to analyse. But we don't set easy questions. We set questions that, even though they may appear easy, will certainly have possibilities for complexity. And so in your response, you should be able to, look at and engage with some of those complexities. Walt sacrifices his life for Tao and Sue's family. Why does he do this? Well, a basic response will basically say, well, he does this because he grows to like them over the course of the film and wants to help them out. Full stop, done. And now I'm going to give you a range of reasons why he likes them. Okay, he meets Sue and she banters with him, and Tao becomes his friend and helps him out around the place, and he's teaching Tao to be a man. So at the end, the gang comes along and he doesn't want Tao to be in the gang, so he likes Tao and Sue, so he dies for them. Bang, the end. That's a fairly basic response, and that's not looking at any of the complexities here. Why does he sacrifice his life for Tao and Sue's family? And one of the complexities that I would argue with here is that, well, he doesn't entirely sacrifice his life for Tao and Sue's family alone. He also sacrifices his life for, his own redemption and his own battles and baggage that he's carried throughout his years, especially as he's got older. Some to do with the war, some to do with his own family, and his morals and values. And so he's dying there is a way of him gaining control, but also able to go out with a feeling of goodness about himself. All right, and there is one of the complexities. So consider again in the question, what is it asking you to do, and are you addressing the complexities in that response? Now, the first 3 points have been about the question. So you can see how important it is to actually get and understand the question. Now we're talking about some writing stuff, all right? And whatever the question is, don't just waffle on about Gran Torino. Okay, I don't care if Walt is a grumpy old man because he's been in the wall and stacked gooks like you 6 feet high. I don't care about that. If that's not doing anything in support of the question you're meant to be answering, then it's irrelevant. So don't tell me about how Walt is trying to teach Tao to become a man if that's not going to help the question. And if you're going to tell me about that, well, give me some specific scenes, quotes, cinema techniques, things that Walt does. Be very specific. Go to the text always to support your response. All right. If you're just going to waffle on about general things to do with Gran Torino, you're only going to get a general type score in the end. Okay. You're not going to be able to push up into that upper range response. So think about how the text supports your answer. You can have whatever opinion you want, but you must be able to back it up with some type of textual support. All right. So I don't want you to tell me about how Tao is a very good quarterback for his school football side. That's not in the film, and it's completely made up, and you can't back that up with anything in the film, so I don't want to know about it, okay? You must support your response with textual support. This is another writing point, obviously, and this is something that we talk about throughout the year. You can't just click your fingers and become a very fluent and cogent and capable and confident writer overnight. It just doesn't happen. And this is why we say you must practice, practice, practice. But there's a few things that you should think about here, okay? Your response should be fluent. It should try to flow. It should make sense rather than jump from point to point to point, back and forth throughout the film. There should be some type of logic in the progression of the essay, all right? And I would try to avoid basic juvenile type words. Words like Walt is a good man. He was nice. He done a good thing for them. These types of basic expression flaws can be eliminated fairly quickly. Don't say kids, refer to children or youths, all right? Tao isn't angry, he is mortified at what has happened to his sister, okay? So get above Tao, someone isn't sad, someone isn't mad, we can find better words for these, all right? So if you're thinking and if you're struggling about to do this, refer to that sentence openers and transition words sheet and see if you can bank 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of those and practice using those in some of your practice paragraphs before the exam, okay? Because just those little types of words will improve the quality of your response. And the same will go for your language analysis as well. Always remember that Gran Torino is a film. And so in your essay, you should be looking at examples where the filmmaking, the cinematography will support or help an analysis or answer the question that you are being asked, all right? So, but however, it needs to be relevant to the question that you're answering. So if we talk about, Tao being a leader or a follower, that question in the practice questions, well, I don't really. What's the significance of telling me about how the American flag is always behind Walt? Is often positioned behind Walt's head in some of the close-up shots when Walt is talking about his country. Unless you can somehow link that to the issue of Tao being a follower or a leader, then it's largely irrelevant. And so don't just think, well, okay, I know some cinematography here, and that's about how the American flag is somehow in the background, or how Walt's house is always pristine, and when you put it up against the juxtaposition, of that compared to the Van Law house where it's run down, the paint's peeling, the lawns are dry and bare and not taken care of. Well, unless that's helping us make a point about Tao being a leader or a follower, these things are largely irrelevant. So think about, when you talk about cinematography, think about the things that are helping your response. Okay, so if we're talking about Tao being a leader or Tao being, he's a follower and not a leader, well, what are some of the scenes and the cinematography that gives you that sense? At times when Tao and Sue are sitting on the porch, Sue is on the step higher than Tao, and this is almost signifying, this is almost a metaphor for their relationship, where Sue is the dominant one, and she's positioned higher up on the staircase at their front porch, which shows this. All right, so there's an example of the cinematography supporting your answer there. Okay, and that's really important to do. And you should, at some stage in your essay, all right, at least once, be referring to some aspect of the cinematography. But it should have to do with the question that you are answering. And again, I'm talking about question here. You can see the importance of understanding the question that you are answering. Just a few little things. Don't misspell characters' names or the name of the bloody film. All these resources are on Evernote. If you need to brush up on the spelling, have a look at them, please. All right. Think about how you'll begin. Don't start slowly because you think, in about paragraph 3, I'll really start to bring out the big guns. Bring the big guns out right from the start, okay? Make sure the first paragraph or 2 is well written. It often sets the tone for your piece. I'm marking Year 12 exams at the moment, and I'm seeing that if an essay starts off well, very rarely does it die, to become a poor essay. If it starts off well, it will generally maintain that quality. Another thing to think about is your conclusion. I don't want some summary of all the points that you've already made. That's just repeating yourself. Instead, try to finish with an overall final response to the topic. And don't be afraid to bring in a quote to help, go out with a bit of a bang. And the same goes for the beginning. Don't be afraid to start with a quote, okay? Get straight into your response. I don't want an intro, a year 8 trash intro where you're going to talk about all the things, one thing I'm going to talk about in this essay will be this, and another thing will be this. That just gives away all your secrets. Instead, get straight into it. Get straight into your response. And don't be bogged down with this, intro, 3 paragraphs and a conclusion. I don't care about that. All right. Instead, if you want to have 4 paragraphs because you've got 4 main points that you want to touch on, go with 4 paragraphs. If you've got 6 paragraphs because you've got 6 main points that you want to touch on, go with 6. As long as each of them is well written, supported with textual evidence, and is responding to the question, I don't care about, intros, body paragraphs, conclusions, and there's 5 all up, and each paragraph is roughly about half a page. That's nonsense. Okay. Instead, think about responding to the question and doing it well and writing fluently. That's more important. Good luck. You'll be fine.